Joining Juergens in fear-mongering over a cyber doomsday was Jürgen Stock, the head of Interpol, one of the most influential members of WEF. I should also add that the United Nations, which as I mentioned earlier, is currently making its new cybercrime treaty, has named Interpol as uniquely positioned to be the implementing partner of a number of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, specifically when it comes to disrupting financial streams of terrorists, securing cyberspace, and curbing illicit markets. Perhaps unsurprisingly, many of the groups looking to allegedly combat cybercrime in the US and beyond, including the Department of Justice and the FBI, are part of an international public-private partnership housed within the World Economic Forum that is seeking to define these terms in unsettling ways. Not only that, but this group and its partner organizations are also seeking policy objectives that, if widely implemented, would treat anonymous cryptocurrency transactions, and specifically Bitcoin transactions involving mixers and related privacy tools, as criminal. They also, without evidence, assert that there is a direct link between an increase in the value of cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, and an increase in cybercriminal activity. This public-private partnership, the WEF Partnership Against Cybercrime, or WEFPAC, is run by a former intelligence agent named Tal Goldstein, whose military intelligence career, was marked by his efforts to have intelligence agencies essentially fuse with private technology companies in his native Israel. Today, WEFPAC's members not only include the FBI, the Department of Justice, the US Secret Service, and intelligence agencies of Israel and Britain, they also include massive too-big-to-fail banks like Bank of America and Santander, as well as massive tech companies like Amazon and Microsoft. PayPal is also there, so is the nonprofit that manages the SWIFT payment system. In recent reports, WEFPAC has alleged that there is a connection between the use of cryptocurrencies as well as privacy-enhancing tools such as mixers and the incidence of cybercrime. They argue that, quote, cybercriminals abuse encryption, cryptocurrencies, anonymity services, and other technologies, but fail to note that their use is hardly exclusive to criminals. Though they refrain from naming any currency specifically, the WEF has stated elsewhere on its website that, quote, governments don't like the fact that Bitcoin users are anonymous, and they have concerns over its use for criminal activity and money laundering, adding that their worries aren't unfounded. It's important to point out that WEFPAC doesn't see cybercriminals just as those who may engage in hacks or financially motivated acts like ransomware attacks. To WEFPAC, cybercriminals also include those who use technologies to uphold terrorism and spread disinformation to destabilize governments and democracies. From that, it seems that WEFPAC's inclusion of disinformation as a type of cybercrime betrays an intention to develop policies that, under the guise of combating cybercrime, will instead promote increased online censorship, particularly of independent media. In discussing solutions, WEFPAC calls for the global targeting of infrastructures and assets deemed to facilitate cybercrime, including those which enable cybercriminal revenue streams, which, as we will see shortly, refers to infrastructure that allows for more private cryptocurrency transactions and enables, quote, the promotion of illegal sites and the hosting of criminal content. In another section, the group discusses seizing the websites of cybercriminals as an attractive possibility. Given that WEFPAC and its members, like the FBI, view disinformation as a form of cybercrime, this could potentially see independent media websites and the infrastructure that allows them to operate and finance their work, like video sharing and payment platforms that do not censor, emerge as targets. In 2021, FSISAC's Global Intelligence Office released several predictions for 2021 and beyond. Most of these predictions express concern about a coming cyber calamity, though one prediction in particular stands out that, quote, economic drivers towards cybercrime will increase. FSISAC claims that the current economic situation created in the wake of COVID-related lockdowns will, quote, make cybercrime an ever more attractive alternative, stating immediately afterwards that, quote, dramatic increases in cryptocurrency valuation will drive threat actors to conduct campaigns capitalizing on this market, including extortion campaigns against financial institutions and their customers. In other words, FS-ISAC views the increase in the value of cryptocurrency as a direct driver of cybercrime, particularly for ransomware incidents, implying that the value of cryptocurrency must be dealt with if there is to be a reduction in cybercrime, and if cybercrime is to be truly confronted at its source by attacking its profitability, as WEF suggests. However, the data does not fit these assertions, as the use of cryptocurrency by cybercriminals is low and is getting lower. For instance, one recent study, ironically produced by WEF member Chainalysis, found that only 0.34% of cryptocurrency transactions in 2020 were tied to criminal activity, down from 2% the year prior. Though the decrease may be due to a jump in cryptocurrency adoption, the overall percentage of crime-linked cryptocurrency transactions is incredibly low, a fact obviously known to FS-ISAC and its members. But what's disturbing here is that mainstream media has widely circulated the claim that Bitcoin specifically is, to quote Forbes, driving the 1.4 billion ransomware industry. Or to quote NPR, Bitcoin has fueled ransomware attacks. Or to quote an executive at WEF member Chainalysis, Bitcoin is the favorite by far for ransomware attackers. I could give infinite examples, as there is truly an abundance of reports just like these that blame a jump in a well-publicized cybercrime events, specifically ransomware attacks, on Bitcoin's increasing popularity and its intrinsic value. Yet here, if the banks, intelligence agencies, and tech companies that partnered with these initiatives see not just financial privacy, but the value of Bitcoin itself as a threat, it goes without saying that their efforts to stop cybercrime at its source would not just involve eradicating financial privacy when it comes to crypto, but also working to devalue crypto. With such groups openly discussing working outside of legal frameworks to accomplish their goals, Bitcoiners must start paying closer attention to these shadowy groups. There is no proof that cryptocurrency, or more specifically Bitcoin, is the key driver of cybercrime, as cybercrime significantly predates the existence of both. However, cryptocurrency does present a threat to the plans of FS-ISAC members and their partners to begin producing digital currencies controlled either by approved commercial banks or central banks themselves, digital currencies that are designed to be easily surveilled. Central bank digital currencies in particular are being designed and implemented to erode financial privacy and autonomy. The success of CBDCs and related projects depends on neutering the competition, which is likely why FS-ISAC has called for the economic drivers of cybercrime to be combated by a global financial cyber utility, which is, of course, the very same globalist entity that WEF seeks to create. These American federal agencies, institutions, and commercial banks are playing a major role in developing regulations that will inevitably target Bitcoin. They have made it very clear in media reports, press releases, and policy documents that they see financial privacy, the popularity of Bitcoin, and the value of Bitcoin as direct threats responsible for what they define as cybercrime. Yet time and again, the American people have been fleeced and looted by many of these same agencies and many of these same commercial and central banks. The big banks like HSBC can launder millions of dollars for drug cartels. Nothing happens to them. No one goes to jail. The CIA has laundered untold millions through criminal banks like BCCI, a bank which ran its own sex trafficking operation involving prepubescent kids. And again, nothing was done. No one went to jail. FTX can launder aid money supposedly destined for Ukraine, funnel it back as campaign contributions to the same political party, developing crypto regulations while painting Bitcoin as a national security threat. Sam Bankman-Fried was the only person arrested, and right now he's not in prison. He's in a multi-million-dollar mansion in California, about to get 10 of the 13 federal charges against him dismissed. The current president's son can launder as much money as he wants after leaving the evidence on a laptop he abandoned, and the intelligence community comes to his defense, falsely claiming that the data on his laptop, now admitted to be his, was a Russian hoax. These guys are the real criminals, and if you think they care about stopping money laundering or cybercrime in any meaningful way, you have been had. But soon, if nothing is done to stop these policies that are being drafted behind closed doors, use a Bitcoin mixer and take steps to keep your Bitcoin transactions anonymous or more private, you'll be accused of suspiciously acting like a cyber criminal. Complain about the obvious double standard, you'll be accused of spreading disinformation and become a cyber criminal yourself. What should particularly concern us now is how these agencies, entities, and public-private partnerships plan to manufacture consent for their policies. As things stand right now, a lot of the policies dreamt up by these groups that I've just described, I would hope, would be rejected by the vast majority of Americans. That is, of course, unless the right crisis were to come along and suddenly make most Americans extremely concerned and fearful of cybercrime. While warnings of a so-called cyber pandemic floated around in 2021 as a series of high-profile and highly publicized ransomware attacks took place, we haven't heard as much since. But now, with the last global crisis, COVID-19, officially over, according to the US government and the World Health Organization, some are raising the alarm that a new global crisis is soon to make a dramatic appearance. Given what I've been saying, let's check in with the World Economic Forum and see what they think the next global crisis will be. Well, in January of this year, Jeremy Jurgens, number 2 at the WEF after Klaus Schwab, asserted that a, quote, catastrophic mutating event will strike the world in 2 years. What a confident prediction. So what is this catastrophic mutating event that will strike the world? If you guessed a, quote, global catastrophic cyber event, you win. At a presentation at this year's Davos, Jurgens claimed that 93% of cyber leaders and 86% of cyber business leaders believe that the geopolitical instability makes a catastrophic cyber event inevitable. Joining Jurgens in fear-mongering over a cyber doomsday was Jürgen Stock, the head of Interpol, one of the most influential members of WEF. I should also add that the United Nations, which as I mentioned earlier, is currently making its new cybercrime treaty, has named Interpol as uniquely positioned to be the implementing partner of a number of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, specifically when it comes to disrupting financial streams of terrorists, securing cyberspace, and curbing illicit markets. Jurgens and Stock's comments about a catastrophic cyber attack before 2025 spawned hysterical mainstream media headlines warning of cyber apocalypse 2023. That same month, Newsweek's print edition featured an ominous hacker on the cover with the words, "Hack Attack, How Cyber Criminals Outwit All Efforts to Stop Them." Many of the experts quoted in the Hack Attack article work for companies that are WEF members. In recent years, there has been much talk about a doomsday cyber attack, and now it seems top people at the WEF and WEF feel confident enough to put a relatively short timeline on it. How bad will this attack be if and when it materializes? Considering that the current head of the Department of Homeland Security has claimed that the next cyber attack will kill many people, it seems that a cyber 9/11 could be waiting in the wings, which of course would be followed shortly thereafter by a Cyber Patriot Act, or something very similar. If Bitcoin is blamed for motivating or funding the cyber criminals deemed responsible for such a catastrophe, what will happen to public opinion, and what type of legislation might we see rammed through Congress? Commercial banks have fused into the same Orwellian entity, or holding terror-linked Bitcoin or using encryption or mixers makes you a cyber criminal? Or will we fight the groups and institutions that have looted American wealth for well over a century and demand a return to the Constitution and the right to privacy, not just financially, but in all senses? Those that wish to force us into the former scenario clearly and unequivocally see Bitcoin as well as privacy-enhancing technology as a direct threat to their power and their plans, and there has never been a more important time to choose a side.